The recreation hall of Outpost Keswick 7 buzzed with the sounds of celebration. Soldiers from a dozen different species gathered around tables, their voices rising in laughter and triumph. The patrol had gone well. No casualties. No complications. Just another successful mission on the frontier. Lieutenant Zintara stood at the center of the largest group, his golden skin shimmering under the bright lights. The Solmari officer was young, barely 3 cycles into his military service, but his family name carried weight. His fathers had been admirals. His bloodline had served the coalition for generations. "Did you hear the news?" Zintara announced, raising his drinking container. "High Command is assigning humans to our sector." The table erupted in mixed reactions. Some groaned. Others laughed. Private Hook, a fresh recruit with dark green scales and eager eyes, leaned forward. "Humans? The species from that death world?" Hook asked. "I thought they only recently joined the coalition." "They did," Sergeant Krell confirmed. The weapons specialist was built like a boulder, with thick arms and a face scarred from years of combat, about 5 standard years ago. "They're still primitive by most measures. Their technology is centuries behind ours." Zintara smirked. "I've read the reports. Their planet is classified as a Class 12 death world. Gravity that would crush most species. An atmosphere so corrosive it burns. Temperature swings that range from freezing to boiling. And somehow they evolved there and called it home." "That's not even the strangest part," another soldier chimed in. "This one was Velsari, a species known for their excellent memory. I accessed their historical databases. These humans spent their entire existence fighting each other. Wars, constant wars, for thousands of years." The table fell silent for a moment, then burst into laughter. "Of course they did," Krell said, shaking his massive head. "Probably the only way they could survive on that nightmare world. Kill everything or be killed." Zintara took a long drink. "I've heard the stories they tell about themselves. Myths, really. They claim their ancestors hunted animals by simply following them until the prey collapsed from exhaustion. Days of pursuit. Can you imagine?" "Ridiculous," Velsari agreed. "No predator hunts like that. It's inefficient." "There's more," Zintara continued, warming to his subject. "They domesticated wolves. Wolves, one of their planet's apex predators. Turned them into pets. They also claim they survived ice ages, plagues that killed millions, and natural disasters that reshaped continents." Hook's eyes were wide. "That sounds terrifying." "It sounds like exaggeration," Krell corrected. "Every species has myths about their glorious past. Humans are no different. They want to seem tough, so they make up stories." Zintara nodded enthusiastically. "Exactly. I read one account that claimed a human soldier continued fighting after losing a limb. Just kept going like nothing happened. Biological impossibility. The shock alone would kill most species. Maybe they feel pain differently," Hook suggested. "Or maybe they lie," Zintara said with a grin. "Look, I respect that they survived a difficult planet. But now they're in space, surrounded by species that evolved with actual advantages. Superior strength, better technology, telepathy, natural armor. What do humans have? Soft skin, weak bones, and tall tales." The group laughed again. The conversation drifted to other topics, but Hook noticed something. In the corner of the recreation hall, sitting alone at a small table, was Commander Vexeral. The Cathari officer was impossible to miss. He stood nearly 8 feet tall, with 4 powerful arms and deep blue skin covered in pale scars. His face was weathered, his eyes dark and distant. He wore his uniform with precision, every decoration earned through decades of service, and he was watching them. Hook felt uncomfortable under that gaze. Commander Vexeral had a reputation. He was fair but demanding. He never wasted words, and he had survived battles that killed thousands. The younger soldiers whispered about him with a mixture of fear and admiration. Zintara noticed the commander's attention and straightened. Despite his bravado, even he showed respect to Vexeral. "Commander," Zintara called out, "we were just discussing the new human assignments. Perhaps you have thoughts on our new allies." The recreation hall grew quieter. Other conversations faded. Everyone knew Vexeral rarely spoke unless he had something important to say. The commander stood slowly, his forearms moving with practiced ease. He walked to their table, and soldiers instinctively made room. When he sat, the chair groaned under his weight. "You were laughing about human myths," Vexeral said. His voice was deep, like stones grinding together. about their stories of endurance and survival. Just friendly discussion, sir, Zintara said quickly. No disrespect intended. Vexral was silent for a long moment. His eyes moved from face to face, studying each soldier. Huok felt pinned by that gaze. I have served in the coalition military for 42 standard years, Vexral finally said. I have fought in 17 major conflicts. I have commanded troops from 30 different species. I have seen the best warriors the galaxy has to offer. He paused and the silence stretched. And? Zintara prompted, unable to help himself. The myths are real, Vexral said quietly. Every single one. The table erupted in reactions, disbelief, confusion, nervous laughter. Sir, with respect, Zintara began. You asked my opinion, Lieutenant, Vexral interrupted. I have given it. The stories humans tell about themselves are not exaggerations. If anything, they understate the truth. Krell leaned forward, his expression skeptical but curious. Commander, you're saying a human can actually survive catastrophic injury and continue fighting? I'm saying I've seen it happen, Vexral replied. With my own eyes. But that's impossible, Velsari protested. The biological stress alone is apparently something humans overcome, Vexral said. I don't expect you to believe me. I wouldn't have believed it either before I fought alongside them. Huok found his voice. You've served with humans, Commander? Something dark flickered across Vexral's face. A memory, perhaps. Something painful. Yes, he said simply. And they're really as dangerous as they claim? Zintara asked. The mockery was gone from his voice now, replaced by genuine curiosity. Vexral stood, signaling the conversation was over. But before he walked away, he looked directly at Zintara. Dangerous is the wrong word, Lieutenant, he said. Dangerous implies a threat you can predict, a risk you can calculate. Humans are something else entirely. What are they, then? Huok asked quietly. Vexral turned back, and for the first time, Huok saw something that might have been fear in the commander's eyes. Inevitable, Vexral said. He walked away, leaving the table in stunned silence. After a moment, Zintara laughed, but it sounded forced. Old soldiers and their stories. Commander Vexral has earned his rest, but he's clearly been in combat too long. A few others chuckled in agreement, but the mood had changed. The easy celebration was gone, replaced by uncertainty. Huok watched Commander Vexral return to his corner table. The old warrior sat down and stared at nothing, lost in thoughts that none of them could reach. For the first time since joining the military, Huok felt something he hadn't expected to feel about their newest allies. He felt afraid, and he didn't even know why yet. The morning after their conversation, Lieutenant Zintara couldn't shake his irritation. Commander Vexral's words had spread through the barracks like fire. How everyone was talking about humans like they were some kind of mythical creatures. It was absurd. Zintara found the commander in the training observation deck, watching new recruits run through basic exercises. Commander, I need to speak with you, Zintara said, keeping his voice respectful but firm. Vexral didn't turn from the window. Speak, Lieutenant. Your comments last night have caused unnecessary anxiety among the troops. Rumors are spreading. Some soldiers are actually nervous about working with humans. Good, Vexral replied. Healthy caution will keep them alive. Zintara's golden skin flushed darker with frustration. Sir, with respect, I believe you're allowing old superstitions to cloud your judgment. I've reviewed the human military records. Their combat effectiveness is average at best. Their technology is outdated. Their physical capabilities are inferior to most coalition species. Now Vexral turned. His forearms crossed over his chest. You've read reports, Lieutenant. I've bled beside them. There's a difference. Then provide evidence, Zintara challenged. Explain to me how a species with no natural advantages could possibly be as formidable as you claim. Before Vexral could respond, an alarm chimed. Both officers checked their datapads simultaneously. The human contingent has arrived, Vexral said quietly. You'll have your chance to judge for yourself. 2 hours later, the entire base gathered at the landing platform. A human transport ship descended through the clouds, smaller than most coalition vessels but sleek and functional. When the boarding ramp lowered, Zintara watched carefully. The humans emerged in perfect formation. 20 soldiers, each wearing combat armor that looked practical but unremarkable. They were led by a female officer with dark hair pulled back tightly. Her face showed no emotion as she approached the welcoming committee. Zintara was surprised by how ordinary they looked. Most stood between 5 and 6 feet tall. Their bodies appeared fragile compared to the muscular Cathari or armored Velsari. Their skin looked painfully vulnerable, covered only by thin uniforms beneath their armor. Captain Sarah Chen, reporting as ordered, the human officer announced. Her voice was clear and professional. Commander Vexeral stepped forward. Something changed in his posture. It took Zintara a moment to recognize it as respect. Captain Chen, welcome to Outpost Keswick 7. Your reputation precedes you. The human's lips curved slightly. Not quite a smile. As does yours, Commander Vexeral. It's an honor to serve alongside the hero of Sigma Draconis. Zintara saw Vexeral's expression darken at those words. The commander's response was cold. That title is undeserved. Shall we proceed with integration protocols? As the humans were shown to their quarters, Zintara followed at a distance. He studied them carefully. They moved with efficiency, showing neither fear nor arrogance. Their equipment was well maintained but showed signs of heavy use. These were experienced soldiers, he could admit that much. But nothing about them seemed special. Over the next several days, joint training exercises were scheduled. Zintara made sure to attend each one, looking for evidence to support or refute Commander Vexeral's claims. The humans performed adequately in marksmanship. They scored in the middle range for physical endurance tests. During hand-to-hand combat demonstrations, they were easily overpowered by larger species, see? Zintara said to Sergeant Krell during one training session. Competent, professional, but nothing extraordinary. Krell nodded slowly, though he seemed less certain. They're very focused. Did you notice? They don't celebrate successes or show frustration at failures. They just keep going. Discipline, Zintara dismissed. Good training. Nothing supernatural about it. On the 5th day, Zintara's patience ran out. During a break in training, he approached Captain Chen directly. Several of her human soldiers stood nearby, along with Private Hook and other aliens who had become curious about the newcomers. Captain Chen? Zintara said loudly enough for others to hear. I've been reviewing your species' service records. I notice your casualty rates are higher than most coalition forces. Chen turned to face him, her dark eyes unreadable. We tend to volunteer for difficult assignments, Lieutenant. Or perhaps your tactics are reckless, Zintara suggested. I've heard stories about human combat methods, charging superior positions, refusing to retreat from unwinnable situations, taking unnecessary risks. We fight to win, Chen replied calmly. Sometimes that requires accepting risks others won't. Zintara gestured around them. Commander Vexeral has filled the barracks with tales of human invincibility. That you can't be stopped, that you fight through impossible injuries, that you never give up even when logic demands it. He paused. It sounds like propaganda to me. One of the human soldiers, a large male with scars on his face, stepped forward. His hand moved toward his weapon before Chen raised her hand slightly. The human stopped immediately, but his eyes never left Zintara. Easy, Corporal Martinez, Chen said quietly. She turned back to Zintara, and now there was something different in her expression. Not anger. Something colder. You're Solmari, aren't you, Lieutenant? Your people have an excellent military tradition. Calculated, strategic. You fight with precision and withdraw when losses become unacceptable. She tilted her head slightly. As Commander Vexeral told you about Sigma Draconis. The name landed like a physical blow. Zintara saw Vexeral stiffen from across the training yard. I've heard the name, Zintara admitted. Some classified incident. Not classified, Chen corrected. Just not discussed. Perhaps you should ask the commander about it. Ask him why he carries those scars. Ask him what humans did at Sigma Draconis. I'm asking you, Zintara challenged. Chen's expression didn't change. We did what humans do, Lieutenant. We held the line. She turned and walked away, her soldiers following in perfect formation. The Solmari officer was left standing alone, feeling like he'd lost an argument he didn't understand. That evening, Zintara went looking for information. The base's military archives had files on every major engagement. When he searched for Sigma Draconis, he found the listing immediately. Battle of Sigma Draconis, 15 years ago. Coalition forces versus Vrek Swarm. Victory achieved with significant casualties. But when he tried to access detailed reports, he was blocked. The files were marked Classification Level Red. Only senior officers with special clearance could review them. Frustrated, Zintara went to the recreation hall. Sergeant Krell was there, along with several other veterans who had served in the military for decades. "Anyone know what happened at Sigma Draconis?" Zintara asked. The response was immediate silence. Veterans exchanged glances. Some looked uncomfortable. Others suddenly found their drinks very interesting. Finally, Krell spoke. "Don't ask about that, Lieutenant. Why not? It's just a battle. We study battles all the time." "That wasn't just a battle," an older soldier said quietly. She was Velsari, her memory-enhanced mind clearly recalling something she wished she could forget. "That was the day the galaxy learned what humans really are." "What does that mean?" "It means," Krell said slowly, "that Commander Vexral was there. And if he hasn't told you about it, there's a reason." Zintara felt his frustration growing into anger. "This is ridiculous. It's a military engagement. History. Facts. Not ghost stories." "Some facts are worse than ghost stories," the Velsari veteran said. Private Huok appeared at Zintara's side. The young recruit looked nervous. "Sir, I tried to access the Sigma Draconis files too. I got a message. It said that personnel below command rank are advised to request briefings from supervising officers who participated in the engagement." "Meaning Vexral?" Zintara concluded. "He's in his quarters," Huok said. "I saw him heading there an hour ago." Zintara made a decision. He was tired of hints and warnings and meaningful looks. If Commander Vexral wanted them to respect humans, he needed to provide actual evidence. The lieutenant marched to Vexral's quarters and activated the door chime. After a long moment, the door opened. Commander Vexral stood in the doorway, looking older than usual. "Tired. Let me guess," Vexral said. "You want to know about Sigma Draconis?" "Yes, sir." Vexral was quiet for a long time. Then he stepped aside. "Come in, Lieutenant. Bring anyone else who doubts. It's time I told the story." Zintara felt a chill run down his spine. Something in Vexral's voice promised that nothing would be the same after this conversation. He was right. Commander Vexral's quarters were sparse and organized. Military precision in every detail. But Zintara noticed something unusual on the wall. A piece of twisted metal mounted like a trophy. It was burned and scarred, with human writing etched into its surface. Within minutes, word had spread. Lieutenant Zintara, Sergeant Krell, Private Huok, and a dozen other soldiers crowded into the room. Some sat, others stood. All were silent. Vexral stood before them, his forearms hanging at his sides. He stared at the piece of metal on the wall. "That's a hull fragment," he said quietly. "From a human ship called the Indomitable. I kept it for 15 years. A reminder." He turned to face them, and his expression was haunted. Sigma Draconis was a coalition colony world. Beautiful place. Rolling hills. Blue oceans. 40,000 colonists from a dozen different species. We thought it was safe, far from any conflict zones. Vexral moved to his desk and pulled up a holographic display. It showed a star system with multiple planets. The Vrex swarm came without warning. For those who don't know, the Virex are a hive mind species. No negotiation, no mercy. They consume everything in their path. When they hit Sigma Draconis, they hit it with everything they had. 300 warships, the room was completely silent. I was a junior officer then, third commander on the Cathari warship Thousand Blades. We were part of a coalition patrol, 14 ships total. When we received the distress call, we jumped to Sigma Draconis immediately. The hologram changed, showing ship positions. We were completely outmatched. The Vrex outnumbered us 20-1. But we had to try. We had to give the colonists time to evacuate. Vexral's voice grew harder. We lasted 43 minutes. The Vrex tore through us like we were paper. Ships exploded. Captains called for retreat. The evacuation had barely started. Thousands were still on the surface. High Command ordered us to withdraw, gather reinforcements and return. He paused, his four hands clenching into fists. Everyone followed orders. Everyone except one ship. A human frigate, the Indomitable, Captain James Martinez commanding. Crew of 200. The hologram highlighted a single small ship surrounded by hundreds of enemy vessels. I remember the transmission. Admiral Kethrin ordered them to retreat. Captain Martinez replied, "Negative, Admiral. We have 40,000 civilians down there. Someone needs to buy them time." Zintara leaned forward. "One ship against 300? "One ship against 300, Vexral confirmed. The Admiral told them it was suicide. that they couldn't possibly hold. Martinez said, "Watch us." Vexral manipulated the hologram, showing the battle. The Indomitable positioned itself between the Vrex fleet and the evacuation zone. Alone. They opened fire with everything they had. Their weapons were old by coalition standards. Railguns and missiles. But they used them with precision I'd never seen. He looked at the assembled soldiers. We retreated to the system's edge. The 1,000 blades had taken heavy damage. Our engines were failing. Our weapons offline. We could only watch the sensors and listen to the communications. For 6 days the Indomitable fought. 6 days? Krell's voice was disbelieving. How? I asked myself that same question, Vexral said. Hour after hour I watched their ship's status reports. Hull breaches, life support failures, casualties mounting. Any rational species would have withdrawn. Any normal crew would have broken. He walked to the wall and touched the metal fragment gently. But humans aren't rational, not when someone needs help. I listened to their internal communications. Crew members with terrible injuries refusing medical treatment. Patch me up and get me back to my station. Engineers repairing systems that should have been impossible to fix. Pilots flying intercept patterns with their ship falling apart around them. Vexral's voice dropped to almost a whisper. On the 3rd day, the Vrex focused their entire fleet on the Indomitable. They hit that ship with enough firepower to destroy a planet. The human shields failed. The armor was breached. Sections of the ship were vented to space. Over half the crew was dead. But they kept fighting, Huick said, understanding dawning. They kept fighting, Vexral agreed. Captain Martinez sent a message to the colony. Still here? Still standing. Get those people out. His voice was calm, like he was discussing the weather. The hologram showed the Indomitable, battered and broken, still firing. On day 5, they ran out of missiles. Their railguns were damaged beyond repair. They had no weapons left. The Vrex closed in for the kill. Zintara felt his throat tighten. What did they do? Vexral met his eyes. They used the ship itself. Captain Martinez aimed the Indomitable at the largest Vrex carrier and engaged maximum acceleration. They rammed it at a significant fraction of light speed. The room erupted in shocked exclamations. That's impossible, someone said. The crew would never survive the impact forces. They didn't survive, Vexral said flatly. That was the point. They turned their ship into a kinetic weapon. The impact destroyed the Vrex carrier and damaged a dozen other ships around it. The explosion was visible from 3 planets away. Silence fell like a weight. But that's not the end of the story. Vexral continued. Before they rammed, they evacuated their surviving crew. 12 people in an escape pod. The pod was damaged, life support failing. They had maybe 6 hours of air. He pulled up another display. Meanwhile, the 1,000 blades was still crippled at the edge of the system. My captain was dead. So was the second commander. I was in charge, barely 20 cycles old, trying to keep my crew alive. We couldn't even move. Our engines were gone. Vexral pointed to the sensor data. The Vrex detected us. They sent 6 ships to finish us off. We had no weapons, no engines, no hope. I prepared to evacuate, but our escape pods were damaged too. We were dead, all 300 of us. He paused, and Zintara saw moisture in the commander's eyes. Then that human escape pod changed course. 12 people. Barely enough air to breathe. And they flew toward my ship. I tried to tell them to save themselves. They ignored me. When they reached the 1,000 blades, they boarded us. Why? Huick asked. I asked them that. You know what they said? We don't leave people behind. 12 humans, most of them wounded. They went into our engine room and worked for 3 hours. Somehow, impossibly, they got our engines working. Partial power, but enough. Vexral's voice shook. Those 6 Vrex ships were almost on us. The humans helped us evacuate. Got every one of my crew to the escape pods. I was the last Cathari on the bridge. One of the humans, a woman named Lieutenant Jessica Park, she was there with me. Both her legs were gone, blown off in the Indomitable's final battle. She was sitting in a chair working the navigation console. The commander's 4 hands trembled. I tried to make her leave, told her she'd done enough. She looked at me and smiled. Blood on her teeth, she said. Someone needs to pilot this thing away from your pods. I can do it. Now go, I refused. She pulled out a pistol and pointed it at me. Commander, I'm 22 years old. I've lived a good life. You're a father. I read your file. You have 3 children. Get the hell off this ship. Tears ran down Vexrel's face now, and he made no effort to hide them. She forced me onto the last escape pod. I watched through the viewport as the Thousand Blades, with Lieutenant Park at the helm, charged those 6 Virex ships. She drew them away from us, led them on a chase. When they finally destroyed her, we were far enough away to escape. The room was absolutely silent except for the sound of Vexrel's breathing. Coalition reinforcements arrived 6 hours later. They drove off the Vrex. All 40,000 colonists survived. My crew of 300 survived, and 12 humans died to make that possible. He turned back to face them. Captain Martinez's final transmission was broadcast across the Coalition. He said, "This is Captain James Martinez of the human frigate Indomitable. We held for 6 days. The colonists are safe. We bought them time. Tell them we're sorry we couldn't hold longer." Then he laughed. Actually laughed. He said, "We don't leave people behind. Tell them we kept our word." Vexrel walked to the metal fragment on his wall. After the battle, I went to the debris field. I found this piece of the Indomitable. I had the engineers recover it. I brought it with me to every posting I've ever had. A reminder of what humans are. He turned to Zintara, and the lieutenant saw raw emotion in those ancient eyes. "So when you mock their myths, Lieutenant, understand this. I owe my life to a 22-year-old human woman who chose to die so I could live. She had no reason to save me. We were barely allies. She did it because that's what humans do. They see someone in trouble and they help. Logic be damned. Safety be damned. They help." Vexrel's voice rose to a level that made everyone flinch. 300 Cathari are alive because 12 humans refused to quit. My children have a father because a human girl without legs piloted a destroyed ship into enemy fire. So yes, the myths are real. All of them. And if you ever laugh about humans in my presence again, I will personally request your transfer to the most distant, dangerous post in Coalition space. Am I understood? "Yes, sir," Zintara whispered. The meeting ended in silence. As soldiers filed out, each one looked at that piece of metal with new understanding. Huuk approached Vexrel quietly. "Sir, what happened to the 12 humans who evacuated?" Vexrel's expression softened slightly. "They survived. All of them." The story of Sigma Draconis spread through the outpost like electricity through water. By morning, every soldier knew what had happened 15 years ago. The recreation hall was quiet when Zintara entered. Soldiers who had been laughing about humans just days before now spoke in hushed, respectful tones. Private Huuk found Zintara at breakfast. The young recruit looked like he hadn't slept. "Sir, I've been reading everything I can find about humans. Their history, their biology, their wars." Huuk's voice shook slightly. "It's all true. Everything Commander Vexrel said. Everything Captain Chen implied. It's documented." Zintara pushed his food away. He'd lost his appetite. "What did you find?" "Their planet, Earth. It really is a death world. But it's not just dangerous. It's specifically designed to create the most resilient species possible." Huuk pulled up his datapad. "Look at this. Gravity is 10% higher than standard Coalition baseline. Their atmosphere is 21% oxygen. Do you know what that means?" "Tell me." "It means everything on their planet burns easily. Forest fires were a regular occurrence. The entire ecosystem evolved in an environment of constant danger, and oxygen at that concentration is toxic to most species. Humans breathe it like we breathe standard atmosphere." Sergeant Krell joined them, his massive frame sliding onto the bench. "I've been reading too. Did you know humans are pursuit predators? Their ancestors literally hunted by following prey for days. Not stalking, not ambushing, just following. The prey would run until it collapsed from exhaustion, and then humans would walk up and kill it." "That's impossible," Zintara said, but his voice lacked conviction. "It's called persistence hunting," Krell continued. "Humans can regulate their body temperature through sweat. Most mammals can't do that effectively, so prey animals overheat while running. Humans just keep following. They can run for days if they need to. Not fast sprints, just steady, relentless pursuit." Huuk nodded eagerly. "And their bone structure. I compared it to other species. Human bones can take incredible stress. They're designed to absorb impact. A human can fall from heights that would shatter my skeleton, and they'll just get back up." Zintara thought about the training exercises, how human soldiers had seemed unremarkable, but they didn't seem that strong during our tests. "Because they were holding back," a new voice said. Commander Vexral stood behind them. The soldiers immediately straightened. "May we join you, Commander?" Zintara asked. Vexral sat, his forearms folding in a gesture that suggested he had something important to say. "You're beginning to understand, but you're missing the critical piece. It's not just about physical capabilities. It's about psychology, about how human minds work." He looked at each of them. "Tell me, what happens when a Cathari warrior is seriously injured?" Krell answered. "Our combat effectiveness drops to nearly zero. Pain and shock overwhelm the system. It's a survival mechanism. The body forces you to stop fighting so you can seek medical attention." "Exactly. Same for Solmari, Velsari, and most coalition species. Pain is a signal to stop, to withdraw, to survive." Vexral paused. "For humans, pain is just information." Silence fell over the table. "Humans produce a chemical called adrenaline," Vexral continued. "In extreme situations, it floods their system. It overrides pain receptors, increases strength, sharpens focus. A human with a lethal injury can continue fighting at nearly full effectiveness for minutes or even hours depending on the wound." "Lieutenant Park," Zintara said quietly. She had lost both legs but was still piloting the ship. "Yes, I've seen humans with broken bones continue combat operations. I've seen them keep fighting with wounds that would kill most species through shock alone. It's not that they don't feel pain, they do. They just don't let it stop them." Huak looked horrified and fascinated. "That's terrifying." "It gets worse," Vexral said. "Or better, depending on perspective. Humans have something called pack bonding. Most species form loyalty to family and tribe. Humans form bonds with anyone and anything. They adopt animals as family members. They form emotional connections with inanimate objects. And when they bond with someone, they will die rather than abandon that person." Krell's expression shifted to understanding. "That's why the Indomitable stayed. They'd bonded with the colonists. They'd never even met most of those colonists," Vexral said. "But they were people who needed help. That was enough. Humans see someone in danger and something in their brain says, 'That's my responsibility now.' It's not a choice. It's instinct." Zintara struggled to process this. "But that's irrational. Sacrificing yourself for strangers serves no evolutionary purpose, doesn't it?" Vexral countered. "Humans survived on a planet that was constantly trying to kill them. The only way they made it was by working together. By helping each other even at personal cost. That instinct is burned into their genetics. It's why they domesticated wolves. They saw a dangerous predator and thought, 'Let's make friends with that.'" "I read about that," Huuk said. "Humans have domesticated hundreds of species. They take predators and turn them into companions." Vexral nodded. "Because they see potential for cooperation everywhere. It's how they think." Now imagine that mindset in warfare. Humans don't just fight for themselves. They fight for everyone around them. And they don't stop until they win or die. Krell leaned back, his expression troubled. "We train soldiers to know when to retreat. When losses become unacceptable. It's basic tactics. Humans understand tactics," Vexral agreed. "They're not stupid. But they have a different calculation. For most species, acceptable losses are measured in percentages. For humans, acceptable losses are measured in whether the mission succeeded. If dying achieves the objective, they consider that a victory." "That's insane," Zintara said. "Is it?" Vexral challenged. "Think about Sigma Draconis. 200 humans died. 40,000 colonists lived. From a human perspective, that's an incredible return on investment." Private Huak's voice was small. "How do you fight alongside someone like that?" "Knowing they'll sacrifice themselves without hesitation." Vexral's expression softened. "You earn it. You prove you're worthy of that sacrifice. You make sure their deaths mean something." He touched his chest where medals hung. "And you never ever forget what they gave." A human soldier walked past their table. Corporal Martinez, the scarred man who had nearly drawn his weapon when Zintara insulted Captain Chen. Now Zintara understood why. Humans protected their own with terrifying intensity. "There's one more thing you need to understand," Vexral said. "Human creativity in warfare. They've been fighting each other for thousands of years. Wars using swords, spears, arrows, guns, bombs, nuclear weapons. They've tried every possible way to kill each other, and they got very, very good at it. But their technology is behind ours," Zintara protested. "Their current technology, yes, but humans don't need advanced technology to be dangerous. Give them rocks and sticks and they'll find a way to win. They improvise. They adapt. They use the environment as a weapon. During their ancient history, they fought wars in deserts, jungles, mountains, frozen wastelands. They learned to fight anywhere, under any conditions. Krell pulled up historical records on his datapad. I'm looking at human military history. They fought wars that lasted decades. Some lasted over a century. They just kept fighting, generation after generation. Because they don't know how to quit, Vexrel said. It's not in their nature. You can destroy their armies, bomb their cities, kill millions of them. They'll rebuild and come back harder. During their World War II, entire cities were reduced to rubble. The humans living there just cleared the debris and kept fighting. Zintara felt something cold settle in his stomach. We're lucky they're allies. Yes, Vexrel agreed simply. Very lucky. The conversation was interrupted by Captain Chen entering the recreation hall. The entire room seemed to notice her presence. Conversation stopped. Soldiers straightened. She walked to the serving line, got her breakfast, and sat alone at a corner table, just like Vexrel usually did. Zintara made a decision. He stood and walked to her table. His hands were shaking slightly. Captain Chen, may I join you? She looked up, her dark eyes unreadable. After a moment, she nodded. Zintara sat. For several seconds, he couldn't find words. I owe you an apology, he finally said. I mocked you and your people. I implied you were reckless and primitive. I was wrong. Commander Vexrel told us about Sigma Draconis. Something flickered across Chen's face. Memory, perhaps, pain. The commander tells that story to every new assignment, she said quietly. He thinks people need to understand. He's right. I didn't understand. I looked at humans and saw weakness. I didn't see the strength underneath. Chen set down her eating utensil. Lieutenant, let me tell you something. We don't want to be seen as terrifying. We don't want people to fear us. We joined the coalition because we hoped we could be part of something bigger. We hoped we'd found a galaxy where cooperation was possible. You have, Zintara said quickly. Have we? Or do people only respect us because we're willing to die? She sighed. At Sigma Draconis, we did what needed to be done. We didn't think we were being heroes. We just saw people who needed help and we helped. That's all. That's everything, Zintara replied. Chen looked at him for a long moment. 3 weeks passed. The atmosphere at Outpost Keswick 7 had changed completely. Human soldiers were no longer curiosities or subjects of mockery. They were respected. Alien troops asked them for training advice, shared meals with them, listened to their stories. Lieutenant Zintara had learned more about humans than he'd ever thought possible. He learned that Corporal Martinez was named after the captain who died at Sigma Draconis. He learned that humans drank something called coffee that was toxic to most species. He learned that they sang songs while marching, turning exhaustion into rhythm, but he hadn't seen them fight. Not really. Training exercises weren't combat. And some part of him still wondered if the stories were exaggerated. If perhaps Sigma Draconis was a unique situation, he was about to learn the truth. It was early morning when the alarm screamed. Zintara rolled out of his bunk, already reaching for his armor. Throughout the barracks, soldiers scrambled to battle stations. Report! Commander Vexrel's voice boomed over communications. Multiple contacts inbound, the sensor operator replied. Mercenary forces. Heavy weapons. Estimate 200 hostiles, Zintara cursed. Mercenaries were dangerous. They fought for profit, not honor, which made them unpredictable and ruthless. He reached the command center as the first explosions rocked the base. Through the windows, he saw ships descending, dropships unloading troops, heavy walkers advancing. They're hitting the eastern perimeter, Vexrel announced, studying tactical displays. Concentrated assault. They're trying to breach the civilian evacuation zone. The outpost housed 300 military personnel, but it also protected a civilian research station with over 100 scientists and support staff. Families. Children. Defensive positions, Vexrel ordered. Hold the line. Buy time for evacuation. Zintara grabbed his weapon and headed for the eastern perimeter. Around him, coalition soldiers moved with trained efficiency. They'd prepared for this. They knew their jobs. The battle began in earnest. Mercenary forces hit the defensive line with overwhelming firepower. Energy weapons tore through barriers. Explosions sent soldiers flying. Zintara found himself pinned behind cover, returning fire desperately. They're pushing through Sector 7, someone shouted. Zintara risked a glance. The mercenaries were advancing with heavy armor support. Coalition forces were falling back. Casualties mounting. Commander Vexeral's voice cut through the chaos. All units fighting retreat. Fall back to secondary positions. Protect the evacuation routes. It was the right call. They were outgunned. Staying would mean unnecessary deaths, but Zintara felt frustration burning in his chest. They were losing ground. The civilians needed more time. Commander Vexeral, this is Captain Chen. The human's voice on the communication channel was calm, too calm for the situation. Go ahead, Captain, Vexeral replied. Request permission to lead counter-assault. Human forces are ready. Silence fell across the command channel. Zintara glanced at Sergeant Krell, who was crouched beside him. The big warrior looked skeptical. Captain, enemy forces significantly outnumber us, Vexeral said carefully. A counter-assault would be effective, Chen interrupted. Sir, with respect, this is what we do. Let us work. Another explosion rocked the perimeter. Zintara saw 2 Velsari soldiers go down, wounded. Permission granted, Vexeral said. All coalition forces support the human counter-assault. Captain Chen, you have tactical command. Zintara's communicator switched channels. Captain Chen's voice filled his ear. All units, listen carefully. Humans will advance on my mark. Coalition forces provide covering fire and secure flanks. Do not, I repeat, do not follow human assault teams into close combat. We're going to do things that look crazy. Trust us anyway. That's not reassuring, Krell muttered. Human teams, sound off, Chen ordered. 20 voices responded. 20 humans against 200 mercenaries. Corporal Martinez, take Team 1. You know what to do. Yes, ma'am. Time to show them what Tuesday looks like. The humans laughed. Actually laughed. Zintara couldn't believe it. All teams advance. Make noise. Make them scared. What happened next would be burned into Zintara's memory forever. The humans emerged from cover and charged directly at the mercenary lines. Not a cautious advance. A full sprint into enemy fire. And they were screaming. War cries that echoed across the battlefield. They're insane, someone shouted. But Zintara watched carefully. The humans weren't running in straight lines. They moved in patterns, using terrain that seemed useless as cover. They threw grenades not where enemies were, but where enemies would move to avoid other threats. A human soldier was hit. Went down hard. Zintara expected them to stop to help the wounded. Instead, the soldier rolled behind cover, still shooting, providing support while injured. Keep pressure on the flanks, Chen ordered coalition forces. Don't let them surround the human teams. The mercenaries focused fire on the charging humans. It was exactly what Chen wanted. While attention was on the frontal assault, human teams flanked around the sides. They moved fast, using smoke and confusion. Zintara saw Corporal Martinez throw himself through a window into a building held by mercenaries. Insane. Suicidal. Except 30 seconds later, those mercenaries came running out. Panicked, and Martinez was behind them shooting. How? Krell breathed. They're making the battlefield chaotic, Zintara realized. Mercenaries fight for money. They want a clean victory. Humans are making it messy and personal. A human soldier took a direct hit from an energy weapon. The blast should have killed her. Instead, she stumbled, regained her footing, and kept advancing. Zintara could see her armor was breached, blood soaking through. Marine down, someone called. I'm fine, the wounded soldier replied, still in the fight. That wound is critical, Vexeral's voice said. Fall back for medical treatment. After we win, sir. Too busy right now. It was exactly what Vexeral had described. Pain was just information. The injury wasn't stopping her. The mercenary line began to waver. They had superior numbers and equipment, but they were facing an enemy that wouldn't stop, that couldn't be intimidated, that treated death as an inconvenience rather than an end. They're breaking, Krell said, disbelief in his voice. The mercenaries are actually breaking. He was right. Mercenary forces began pulling back, their formation collapsing. You couldn't scare people who were already charging into fire. You couldn't intimidate soldiers who laughed at death. All coalition forces advance, Vexeral ordered. Press the advantage. Now alien soldiers moved forward, supporting the human assault. Together, they pushed the mercenaries back. What should have been a defeat turned into a rout. 30 minutes later, the mercenaries were fleeing to their ships. They'd come expecting an easy target. They'd found humans instead. Zintara collapsed behind cover, breathing hard. Around him, soldiers were checking casualties. The cost had been high. 7 coalition soldiers dead, 15 wounded among the humans, 3 dead, 8 wounded. But those 8 wounded were refusing to leave their positions until the all-clear was sounded. Zintara saw one of them, the soldier who'd been hit by the energy weapon. She was sitting against a wall, a medic working on her, and she was still holding her weapon. He approached her carefully. "You should rest." She looked up. Her face was pale from blood loss, but her eyes were alert. "After we secure the perimeter. Can't leave the job half done. The battle's over. We won." "Not over until everyone's safe," she replied. Then she smiled. "Besides, I've had worse." The medic snorted. "She's lying. This wound should have killed her. Her armor absorbed most of it, but internal damage is severe. She needs surgery immediately." "After," the human soldier insisted. Zintara shook his head in wonder. This was what Vexrel meant. Humans didn't quit, even when logic said they should. An hour later in the medical bay, the situation became clearer. The human soldiers who had been wounded were all there now, finally accepting treatment. Captain Chen moved among them, checking on each one. Lieutenant Zintara entered and approached her. "Captain, that was incredible. How did you know it would work?" Chen looked tired. "We didn't know, we hoped. Mercenaries fight for money. We fight because people need protecting. Different motivations lead to different outcomes. 3 of your soldiers died." Pain flashed across Chen's face. "I know. I'll write letters to their families tonight. Tell them their sacrifice saved 100 civilians and 300 soldiers. Does that help? Knowing they died for a reason?" "No," Chen said quietly. "Death never helps. But at least it means something." Zintara saw Commander Vexrel enter the medical bay. The old warrior moved directly to the human wounded, speaking to each one, thanking them personally. When Vexrel reached Chen, they stood face to face, 2 warriors who had seen too much death. "You did well, Captain," Vexrel said. "We did what was necessary, Commander." "It was more than that. You showed everyone here what humans are capable of." He raised his voice so others could hear. "Today, human soldiers held the line when we were falling back. They turned a defeat into victory. They reminded us what courage looks like." The medical bay was silent except for the soft beeping of monitors. "I told you the myths were real," Vexrel continued, looking at the assembled soldiers. "Now you've seen it with your own eyes. These humans charged into fire, fought through injuries that would kill most of us, refused to quit even when bleeding.